ACCA SBL, which is your strategic business leader. Very interesting syllabus and equally interesting exam. I really find it very interesting because it is going to be one case scenario, like because the exam consists, it's a 4 hours exam with one case scenario when you have 5 questions to answer from that case scenario. So 20 marks each, 5 questions. And every 20-mark question has got 16 marks for your technical knowledge and 4 marks are for your professional skills. And all in all, we can say that 80 marks they go to technical knowledge and 20 marks are for the professional skills. Syllabus is very interesting. It's about corporate governance. It's about ethics. It's about leadership. It's about strategy, internal environment, external environment, change management, process redesign, project management, e-business. So it's very, very, very up-to-date and forward-looking syllabus. Preparing for SBL, actually, it is not like preparing or creating or absorbing some kind of knowledge in one narrow domain. It is about developing a thought process. It is about developing or learn how to think like a business manager, learn how to think like a business leader, and have a holistic view, an overall view of what is happening in the entire organization, and then approach to that situation not only in one dimension, but taking care of all the stakeholders and taking care of all the issues which are involved, which seem to be involved, or which possibly could be involved. Usually the case provides sufficient information. It has sufficient clues. You need to understand those clues. You read it carefully. You identify the issues because there are certainly some issues. And that's why they have given that case scenario. And you identify the issues, and it depending on the question requirement. But generally we say that you identify the issues and then you make some recommendations, make some analysis, make some suggestions based on that. And you relate it to your academic knowledge. There are a lot of models in your SBL syllabus, like the theories. You've got 3 models from Porter's model, like Porter's value chain, Porter's diamond, or Porter's 5 forces. Then you've got Boston Consulting Group model and NSOF model and performance excellence models, etc. So there are quite a lot of things to remember, but you don't have to reproduce it. So this is one thing which students, they make mistake. They think that they have to learn and they would be required to write down an essay on Porter's value chain. That would not go. That would never happen. So what happens, how do you relate knowledge? How do you relate your knowledge to, or how do you apply your knowledge to that scenario? For example, the question comes here in which we have to assess the performance of the business. Now, an organization is a big thing. You have to assess the performance. So the question is where to start with and where to end. So there is some guidance. Is there any guidance that which areas of performance we have to assess? What are the dimensions of performance? So here you refer to Baldrige model. So you don't write, you don't have to write down the Baldrige model. It has got 8 dimensions. You are not required to, refer to all of those 8. You would see that out of those 8, which requirements are missing, or where we are doing good or where we are doing bad. For example, in Baldrige model, the dimensions are leadership is there, strategy is there, operations are there, financials are there, customer-driven excellence is there. So these are the 8 areas which you will pick up one by one, that how good or bad have we been doing in operations. What are the weaknesses in customer-driven excellence? What are the weaknesses in leadership style? What are the weaknesses in business strategy, and so on. So it gives you a guidance. That's very normal. That's very logical. That if I have to assess the performance, like if I am speaking about performance, if you remember from your past knowledge, you have been doing this, performance analysis, interpretation of financial ratios and stuff like that in F2, F3, F5, F7, so on. And you have been doing that, but that was a very narrow perspective of your only financial analysis. Here you have a much bigger and much wider spectrum. You are talking about operations, and then when you say operations, there are 4 dimensions on operations. Okay, the deployment, about the cost, and about the results, and so on. Then you speak about, for example, financials. Of course, financials you understand a lot. Then comes your leadership. So you see the leadership role which has been in the organization. Is it providing sufficient guidance? And then you talk about the strategy of the business. So it's very interesting thing. You need to know, you need to understand the, how to say, academic side of the syllabus, and then you relate it into exam. And you should remember that these business cases, they always reflect some kind of issues and concerns and problems by different group of stakeholders. You have to identify them, and then you have to make suggestions and recommendations, and these suggestions and recommendations, they always result in some change. Because if you say that let the things go as they were going, there is nothing you did. So whenever you are trying to do something, you are actually taking decisions, and decisions being changed, and how to implement the change, what are the change management strategies. Then you go back again to your syllabus areas, that what are the impacts and what are the parties which are involved with the change, how to bring about the change, what are the steps in the change management process, and so on and so forth. So these topics all are like strategy and operations and decisions, and change management. And when you are changing, you are actually changing some processes, you are changing some people, you are changing roles and responsibilities. And while doing all of these things, you never lose sight of your corporate governance issues, you never lose sight of your ethical issues. So all of these topics are so much integrated and so much logical, that it makes it fun. When you are reading the syllabus, when you are doing your practice questions, it's all fun. And the most important thing is what you need to learn, that how to draft your answer. Drafting your answer is very important, because there are two things. Number one, it has got 4 professional marks. That's very important. And another one is, how to say, the relationship between the theoretical knowledge which you learned and the practical scenario which you face. How do you relate to these two? And there is always the knowledge and the answer which you produce, it has to be very coherent, it has to be very logical flow. The beginning of that, what is the situation, the identification of the issues, and then coming close to the recommendation or suggestions or conclusion, whatever they require. So overall, I say that this strategic business leader, it is not only about learning one knowledge area, it is about getting academic knowledge and developing a mindset of an entrepreneur, developing a mindset of an entrepreneur, mindset of a business. And do not think like an employee. You have to think like an owner of the business. Unless you don't take the ownership, you don't put yourself into that situation, that if I were the owner of this thing, if I were the manager of this thing, how would I have reacted, or how would I have managed these things? So that's really very important factor, that you have to develop that mindset. Now, how do you prepare from the course given by Vertex Learning? How do you prepare for SBL through our course? Usually, I always suggest my students to read all of the book carefully. Watch the videos and read the book. Here, actually, the lectures are in so much detail. I really do not feel that you need to read the book, very honestly. Yes, if you want to read, you still can read. Book reading is not really very important, because I've very thoroughly covered everything. Yes, from the study text, what you can do, that you can read the activities. There are activities in each chapter. Those activities are small scenarios. Those are short cases, you can say. So when you read those short cases or those activities, it will, prepare you for facing a bigger case. So watch videos, if needed, watch them twice. Use my short notes for revision purposes, and do practice kit questions. Focus more on your practice kit questions, because the more scenarios you read, the more scenarios you see in the practice kit, and then you see the solutions as well. It will help you to develop that skill of how to approach different situations as a manager, and how a manager thinks, and how a manager reacts or responds to a certain situation. So spend less time on the study text and focus more on the practice kit. Lectures are enough to replace the need of reading the study book. Okay, so lectures are in detail. I've covered everything, and there are a lot of practical examples, and please do watch and do listen to those examples which I've given.